The Forgotten Transmission. The silence in the Galactic Federation's monitoring station was broken by the sharp beeping of an ancient receiver. Chief Operator Zelfin, a tall reptilian being with emerald scales, lifted his triangular head from his rest position. His three eyes focused on the blinking red light that hadn't activated in over 2 centuries. "That's impossible," Zelfin whispered, his forked tongue tasting the air nervously. The emergency frequency beacon was designed to receive only the most desperate calls for help. No one had used it since the Great Purge Wars ended 300 years ago. His clawed fingers danced across the crystalline control panel, adjusting frequencies and amplifying the weak signal. Static filled the chamber, followed by a voice so broken and desperate that it made Zelfin's spine ridges stand on end. "This is Commander Lyrak of the Healer's Covenant. If anyone receives this transmission, we are dying." The voice cracked with exhaustion and despair. "Our worlds burn. Our children scream. The Ravagers have found us again. We have perhaps days before our last sanctuary falls." Zelfin's 3 hearts began beating faster. The Healer's Covenant had been legends even when he was a hatchling. They were the galaxy's greatest medical minds, a peaceful species that had saved billions of lives across countless worlds. Their technology could cure diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Everyone owed them a debt. "Please," the voice continued, growing weaker. "We cannot fight. We were never meant for war. Our healing hands cannot hold weapons. If there is anyone out there who remembers what we have given, what we have sacrificed for peace, help us. The coordinates are attached. We don't have long." The transmission ended with the harsh sound of explosions in the background. Zelfin stared at the console, his mind racing. The Healer's Covenant had vanished from galactic society decades ago, retreating to hidden worlds after the last war. Most beings assumed they had simply faded away, choosing isolation over the growing violence in the galaxy. But they were still out there, still healing, still saving lives. And now, they were about to be wiped out. Zelfin's claws trembled as he initiated the emergency protocols. Within minutes, representatives from every major species in the Federation would receive the transmission. The question was whether anyone would be brave enough to answer it. The Federation Council chamber erupted in chaos as species after species listened to the desperate plea. The massive dome-shaped room, designed to accommodate hundreds of different life forms, filled with worried chatter in dozens of languages. Universal translators worked overtime, creating a symphony of concern and fear. President Galaxy, an ancient being of pure energy contained within a shimmering humanoid form, called for order. Her voice resonated through every being present, cutting through the noise like a blade through silk. "Fellow delegates," she began, her form pulsing with controlled emotion. "We have all heard the transmission. The question before us is simple. Do we have the courage to act?" Senator Vorthak of the Militant Alliance was the first to speak. His massive, armored form dominated the speaking platform as his deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "The Ravagers are not some minor threat. They are the reason half our civilizations developed weapons technology. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but dead rock behind." "But the Healer's Covenant saved my people from the Red Plague," interrupted Dr. Whisper, a floating jellyfish-like being whose tentacles glowed with bioluminescent patterns. "Without their intervention, my entire species would have been extinct 5 centuries ago." More voices joined the debate. The Aquatic Confederacy spoke of debts owed. The Silicon-based collective shared memories of lives saved. Even the notoriously selfish Traders Guild admitted that healer technology had kept their economy running during the dark decades. Yet for every voice supporting rescue, another raised concerns. The Ravagers were too dangerous. The Healer's Covenant had chosen isolation. Resources were limited. The risk was too great. Admiral Kronks, a battle-scarred veteran whose people had fought the Ravagers before, stood slowly. His cybernetic implants gleamed as he accessed tactical data. "I have studied Ravager patterns for 60 years, he announced. They travel in swarms of thousands. Their ships are biological, capable of reproduction and growth. Once they begin consuming the system, they become exponentially stronger. The chamber fell silent as holographic displays showed the terrifying statistics. Ravager fleets grew like a plague, feeding on destroyed worlds to create more ships, more weapons, more death. "Sir," Park called out, her voice filled with excitement, "the Ravagers are actually afraid of us. Look at their formation patterns. They're trying to maintain distance." Rodriguez studied the tactical display. The Ravager fleet, which had been advancing in perfect predatory formation, was now scattered and confused. Ships that had moved with confident grace now darted nervously through space, uncertain how to handle prey that fought back effectively. "Open a channel to all Ravager vessels," Rodriguez ordered. The communication system crackled to life, carrying his voice across the battlefield. "This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have attacked innocent beings under our protection. Withdraw immediately, or we will show you why our species survived on a world that tried to kill us every day." The response came not in words, but in action. A massive Ravager ship, easily 3 times the size of any human vessel, began moving toward the fleet. Its hull pulsed with angry patterns as dozens of feeding tendrils extended like grasping arms. "That's their command ship," Commander Stone reported. "Energy output is incredible. It's probably the queen or alpha of their swarm." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Then we take it down. All ships, concentrate fire on the big one. Let's see how tough their leader really is." The coordinated human attack was a thing of beauty in its simplicity. No fancy energy weapons or exotic technology, just explosives, projectiles, and mining equipment used with deadly precision. The massive Ravager ship, expecting easy prey, found itself under assault from creatures it couldn't understand. But the real shock came when human boarding parties launched themselves across the void. Sergeant Major Harrison led the first assault team onto the Ravager command ship. His combat armor was simple compared to Galactic standards, basically a sealed suit with life support and basic protection. But it was designed by creatures who understood that the universe was trying to kill them. The interior of the Ravager ship was like stepping into a living nightmare. Walls pulsed with organic life. Strange bioluminescent growths provided eerie light. The air itself seemed thick with malevolent presence. "Stay together," Harrison ordered his team. "And remember, these things eat life force. Don't let them touch your skin." They didn't have to wait long to test that theory. The first Ravager they encountered was a creature of shadow and hunger, its form shifting between solid matter and dark energy. When it reached out to drain the Marine's life force, expecting easy feeding, it made contact with Harrison's bare hand where his glove had been torn. The alien shrieked and pulled back as if burned. Where it had touched human skin, dark wounds appeared on its form, spreading like infection. "What the hell?" muttered Corporal Davis, staring at the wounded alien. Harrison grinned fiercely. "Turns out being from a death world has advantages they never considered. Our life force is toxic to them." The realization spread through the human forces like wildfire. They weren't just immune to Ravager feeding. They were poisonous to creatures that had never encountered aggressive, stubborn life energy before. The tide of battle turned decisively. Ravager ships began fleeing the system, their formations breaking apart as individual vessels sought escape. The massive command ship, wounded by human weapons and poisoned by human touch, began to retreat toward the edge of the system. Rodriguez watched the alien fleet withdraw with satisfaction mixed with concern. They had won this battle, but the Ravagers would remember this encounter. They would adapt, evolve, prepare for the next confrontation. "Admiral," Park called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the 4th planet. It's the healers." The view screen flickered to life, showing a being unlike any human had ever seen. Commander Lyrek appeared to be made of living crystal, her translucent form glowing with soft inner light. Despite obvious exhaustion and injury, Her voice carried hope for the first time in the intercepted transmissions. "Unknown vessels," she said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You have saved us from extinction. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. Who are you? What species possesses such courage?" Rodriguez stepped forward, suddenly aware that he was speaking for all of humanity to one of the galaxy's most revered civilizations. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We heard your call for help." Lyrek's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. "Humans, but you are not in our databases. Your species is unknown to us." "We're new to galactic society," Rodriguez admitted. "Most consider us primitive, but we couldn't ignore a call for help." The healer's expression changed to something resembling wonder. "You risked everything for beings you had never met, using technology considered obsolete, against an enemy that has destroyed civilizations. Why?" Rodriguez thought for a moment, trying to find words that would explain humanity to a being whose people had devoted themselves to healing and peace. Finally, he smiled. "Because someone had to." As the human fleet began rescue operations, word of their victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The impossible had happened. A primitive species from an unknown death world had driven off the Ravagers using nothing but determination, stubborn courage, and a kind of life force that came from evolving in hell. In the Federation Council chamber, delegates who had voted against the rescue mission sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in. The humans had not only survived contact with the Ravagers, they had won. President Galaxy's energy form pulsed with what might have been respect. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "we have much to learn from our newest members." In the depths of space, the retreating Ravager fleet began transmitting warnings to their scattered swarms across the galaxy. They had encountered something new, something dangerous, something that turned their greatest weapon into weakness. For the first time in their existence, the Ravagers had found prey that hunted them back. And somewhere in the Kepler 442 system, as human ships worked alongside healer vessels to repair the damage and save lives, a new chapter in galactic history began. The Deathworlders had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. "By the time we could assemble a proper rescue fleet," Admiral Kronks continued, "the healers will be gone, and the Ravagers will be strong enough to threaten core Federation worlds." President Galaxy dimmed slightly, her energy form reflecting the mood of the chamber. "Are we to abandon those who have given so much to preserve life throughout the galaxy? We cannot risk the lives of billions for the lives of millions," Senator Vorthak replied grimly. "The tactical mathematics are clear." As the debate raged on, a small figure in the back corner of the chamber stood up. Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Republic was barely visible among the towering alien forms around her. Her simple blue uniform looked primitive compared to the advanced materials and energy fields worn by other delegates. "We'll go," she said simply. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other optical organs turned toward the human representative. Several delegates made sounds that might have been laughter in their respective species. "Ambassador Chen," President Galaxy said gently, "your species has been part of the Federation for less than a standard year. You have no experience with threats of this magnitude." Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly despite her small stature. "You're right. We're new. We're inexperienced. Our technology is primitive by your standards." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But we're also the only ones willing to try." Senator Vorthak's armored form shifted, servos whining. "Human vessels are barely capable of interstellar travel. Your weapons are chemical-based projectiles. Your life support systems require constant maintenance. What could you possibly accomplish against the Ravagers?" "Maybe nothing," Sarah admitted. "But the healers asked for help. Someone who remembers what they've sacrificed." "We remember." Admiral Kronks leaned forward, his cybernetic eye focusing on the human ambassador. "Your homeworld reports indicate Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. Your species evolved under conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within hours. This may have given you certain advantages in survival situations. We're hard to kill, Sarah agreed with a slight smile. It's something we're good at. Dr. Whisper's tentacles pulsed with curious patterns. The human medical files we've reviewed show remarkable regenerative capabilities and resistance to toxins. Your psychological profiles indicate unusual persistence in the face of impossible odds. We call it stubbornness, Sarah replied. Our ancestors had to be stubborn to survive Earth. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Federation had seen. Species that had remained neutral for centuries began taking sides. Some admired human courage. Others questioned human sanity. A few wondered if there was something special about creatures that evolved on death worlds. Throughout it all, Sarah stood quietly, waiting. She had already made her decision. Her government had made their decision. Earth would answer the call, regardless of what the Federation chose to do. Finally, President Galactic called for a formal vote. All those in favor of mounting a rescue mission to aid the Healers' Covenant. Less than a quarter of the delegates supported the motion. The Federation would not act officially. All those in favor of allowing individual member species to respond independently. This time, nearly every delegate voted in favor. That wouldn't help, but they wouldn't stop anyone foolish enough to try. Sarah nodded respectfully to the assembly. Thank you for your time. We leave within the hour. As she turned to go, Admiral Kronks called out, Ambassador Chen, what makes you think a handful of primitive human vessels can succeed where the entire Federation fears to act? Sarah paused at the chamber entrance, looking back at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Because someone has to try. And maybe being primitive has advantages you've forgotten. Within 6 hours, the largest fleet in human history began assembling near Earth's moon. Every available ship had been pressed into service. Military vessels, exploration craft, mining ships, even converted civilian transports joined the formation. None of them were particularly advanced by galactic standards, but they were reliable, sturdy, and crewed by beings who had evolved to survive the impossible. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Endeavor, watching as more ships arrived through the viewing ports. His weathered face reflected years of deep space exploration, and his calm demeanor masked the magnitude of what they were attempting. Final count, sir, reported his first officer, Lieutenant Park. 237 vessels of various classes. Total crew complement just over 15,000. Rodriguez nodded slowly. It wasn't the largest fleet in galactic history, but it was probably the most determined. Every person aboard had volunteered, knowing they might not return. Earth's governments had been clear. This was a volunteer mission with no guarantee of support or rescue. Communications from the Healers' Covenant, Rodriguez asked. Nothing new, sir. The last transmission was 18 hours ago. Still requesting help, but the signal is getting weaker. The captain studied the tactical displays showing their destination. The Kepler 442 system was nearly 50 light-years away on the edge of charted space. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures consistent with Ravager activity, but details were scarce. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, announced the communications officer. Rodriguez took a deep breath. In his 40 years of service, he had never attempted anything this dangerous. The smart thing would be to wait for reinforcements, better intelligence, proper support. But the healers didn't have time for smart decisions. All vessels, this is Admiral Rodriguez aboard the Endeavor. His promotion had been hastily arranged just for this mission. We're going to attempt something that's probably impossible. We're going to face an enemy that's destroyed civilizations. We're going to do it with ships most of the galaxy considers obsolete. He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. Every face showed determination mixed with fear. Good. Fear kept you alive. Determination kept you moving. But we're also going to do something no one else was willing to try. We're going to answer a call for help. We're going to stand between the innocent and the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to remind the galaxy what it means to be alive. The hyperspace jump began with a flash of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. 237 human ships disappeared into the void, carrying the hopes and prayers of their entire species. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited, some hoping for success, others preparing for the inevitable funeral announcements. None of them truly understood what was coming. The Ravagers had never encountered creatures from a death world before. They were about to learn why some nightmares were real. When Deathworlders answer, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like ghosts materializing from the void. What they found defied every tactical manual ever written. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Park, her voice barely audible on the bridge of the Endeavor. The main view screen showed a scene of devastation that made seasoned officers struggle to comprehend its scale. 3 planets burned in the distance, their surfaces glowing with fires visible from space. Debris fields stretched across millions of kilometers, the remains of what had once been thriving civilizations, and moving through it all like massive predators were the Ravager ships. Admiral Rodriguez gripped his command chair, studying the alien vessels with professional interest and growing dread. The intelligence reports hadn't done them justice. Each Ravager ship was a living nightmare, a fusion of organic curves and metallic edges that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. They moved through space like sea creatures through water, graceful and utterly alien. "Sensor count, Lieutenant Park," Rodriguez ordered, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Sir, I'm reading over 800 Ravager vessels of various sizes. The largest ones are nearly 5 kilometers long." Park's fingers danced across her console. "Energy signatures are off the charts. These things are putting out more power than our entire fleet combined." Captain Williams aboard the destroyer Defiance appeared on the communication screen, his scared face grim. "Admiral, we're also detecting massive biosignatures from those ships. They're not just vessels, they're living creatures, possibly intelligent ones." Rodriguez nodded. The briefings had mentioned this possibility. The Ravagers didn't build ships in the traditional sense. They grew them. Each vessel was a living entity capable of reproduction, evolution, and independent thought. It made them incredibly dangerous and nearly impossible to predict. "Any sign of the healers?" Rodriguez asked. Park worked frantically at her station. "Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with healer technology on the 4th planet. It's faint, but it's there. They're still alive." "For now," added the tactical officer, Commander Stone, "the Ravagers have that planet surrounded. Looks like they're farming it." The view screen zoomed in on the 4th planet, revealing a sight that made several bridge officers step back in horror. The Ravager ships weren't just attacking the surface. They were systematically draining it. Massive tendrils extended from the vessels to the planet below, pulling up streams of glowing energy that disappeared into the alien hulls. "They're feeding," Rodriguez realized. "They're literally consuming the life force of entire worlds." As if summoned by his words, a new transmission crackled through the communication system. The voice was weak, barely above a whisper, but unmistakably desperate. This is Commander Lyrak of the Healers Covenant. If anyone can hear this, we have perhaps hours left. The Ravagers have broken through our last shields. They're draining our people, our children. Please, if there's anyone out there." The transmission ended with the sound of explosions and screaming. The bridge fell silent. Rodriguez stood slowly, every eye on the bridge watching him. Outside, 800 alien nightmares continued their feast of destruction. The logical thing to do was retreat, report back to Earth, and let wiser minds decide how to respond. But logic had never been humanity's strongest trait. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We didn't come this far to watch innocent beings die. Battle stations. We're going in." The response was immediate. Across the fleet, humans who had volunteered for what everyone assumed was a suicide mission prepared to prove that assumption correct. Weapon systems that seemed primitive by galactic standards came online. Shields that were little more than reinforced metal plating were activated. Life support systems that required constant maintenance were pushed to their limits. The human fleet began its attack run. The first Ravager to notice them was a scout vessel about the size of a human cruiser. It turned toward the approaching fleet with lazy curiosity, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to what might have been amusement. A tendril extended from its hull, reaching out to sample these new potential meals. The tendril met the forward guns of the destroyer Valiant and disintegrated in a flash of chemical explosives and metal projectiles. The reaction was immediate and shocking. The Ravager scout ship convulsed as if in pain, its beautiful patterns flashing from curious blue to angry red. A sound echoed through space that shouldn't have been possible, a scream of rage and confusion that every human ship detected on multiple frequencies. Did we heard it? Asked Lieutenant Park, staring at her sensor readings in disbelief. Affirmative, confirmed Commander Stone. That thing is definitely injured. Its energy output just dropped by 30%. More Ravager ships began turning toward the human fleet, their graceful movements taking on an aggressive edge. Tendrils extended from dozens of vessels, reaching out to drain the life force from these impudent newcomers. What happened next changed everything. The tendrils made contact with human ships, seeking to drain the life energy that powered their systems and crews. But instead of the expected weakness and surrender, the Ravagers encountered something they had never felt before: the raw, stubborn life force of creatures born on a death world. Human life energy, forged in the crucible of a planet that actively tried to kill its inhabitants every day, burned like acid through the Ravager feeding systems. The aliens, accustomed to gentle prey that surrendered easily to their hunger, suddenly found themselves choking on poison. The scream that echoed across the system made every human ship shudder. It was a sound of pain, confusion, and for the first time in millennia, fear. Captain Sarah Kim aboard the converted mining ship Prospector watched in amazement as Ravager vessels actually retreated from her ship after making contact. "Admiral, they're pulling back. Whatever they're trying to do to us, it's not working." Rodriguez felt a grin spreading across his face. That's because they've never tried to eat something that bites back. All ships press the attack, use everything we have. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human ships, designed for exploration and industry rather than war, proved surprisingly effective against creatures that had devoured civilizations. Mining lasers cut through organic hulls. Construction explosives tore apart living ships. Even simple projectile weapons found their mark against aliens who had never learned to defend against such primitive attacks. But the real advantage was something no one had anticipated. Every time the Ravagers tried to drain human life force, they got sick. The stubborn, aggressive energy of Death World survivors was toxic to creatures that fed on gentler prey.